everyone. My name is Madan Mohan Rao from YourStory. A very warm welcome to all of you for tuning in for this webinar on how cloud ERP enables digital transformation for startups. We all know that this is probably the best time to be a startup in India. However, managing a startup business and sustaining in this competitive age is challenging. New entrepreneurs quickly discover struggles to cater to all the complicated business processes. With digitization taking over, spreadsheets no longer serve the required purposes, and startups across the globe are moving to adopt cloud ERP solutions. Cloud ERP is a comprehensive business management solution that can help you manage various aspects of running a business and is especially beneficial to startups. In this session, we will deep dive into understanding how cloud ERP can help startups enable digital transformation and thrive in this competitive age. We have with us Vishal Kanal, Director, Oracle NetSuite. Oracle NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP solutions provider. Also with us is Rajesh Pawar, Director for Yantra. Yantra is a leading tech management and consulting firm and a service partner for NetSuite. Rohit Agrawal is the founder of Creo. Creo is a financial intelligence platform for growth-oriented companies. It is building an AI-based SaaS platform with a mission to make finance strategic. Welcome everyone to our panel. Glad to have you here with us. Let's get started with the questions. My first question is to each of you. In a post-pandemic world, technology and innovation are the key factors to stay ahead of the curve as a startup. In this regard, how can cloud ERP help enable digital transformation and help startups grow?
If you look at the post-pandemic world, things have drastically changed, right? Today, it's actually an era of the startups. We have actually seen that in the last couple of years, the startup ecosystem has really witnessed a great boom, right? Now, this has been primarily because of the key digital initiatives that have actually been run by the government, right? That is point number one. Point number two, because of the pandemic, a lot of the businesses have realized the importance of having solutions on a cloud-based environment, right? I remember back in 2020 when the first lockdown was announced, a lot of the prospects that we were actually talking to who were running traditional systems, having their servers in the office, they could no longer access their systems. They did not have data, right? And I remember we used to talk to our customers before that, and we used to actually give them examples like some of our customers, I'm talking 18, 19, right? Where some customers' office caught fire, but it did not impact their business in any manner, right? So, and similar thing happened during the pandemic era, right? So, as and when, customers started realizing this, once the lockdown happened, they couldn't go to their offices, they couldn't access their data, their business came to a grinding halt. And this just did not impact the customers who had all their solutions on the cloud. Yes, it did have a little bit of impact, because the offices were shut, but from a solution standpoint, from accessing the right set of data for the business, right? They could just continue with their business, and access all of the right data. Now, looking at this, a lot of, the traditional businesses started realizing the importance of, having cloud solutions and having data on the cloud. And that's where we have also seen a lot of boom, in this area, where people have started realizing the importance of having solutions in the cloud.
Thanks, Vishal, for setting the stage and showing us how the pandemic accelerated cloud adoption. In your case, Rajesh, what is your take on cloud in the post-pandemic era for startups? Rajesh?
Yeah. So I echo Vishal's thoughts. First and foremost, when the pandemic hit, accessibility to data became a big challenge. And that's where cloud ERPs came to the rescue of all the businesses, whether traditional or new, because you could access your business from anywhere. You could have been on the go, because a lot of us became remote, right? We were not even in the cities where we were working. And that was one of the first early adopter changes during the post-pandemic. And the second thing that we've seen a lot of our customers value about cloud ERPs is that traditionally when people were on-prem ERPs, whenever they wanted to go in for an upgrade to keep themselves updated to the new business scenarios that were coming up or the regulations that were coming up, it was a very long process. They had to completely overhaul their entire RD infrastructure, migrate onto a new version. Whereas this process has now become absolutely seamless with cloud ERPs. They also give you the ability to scale up as well as scale down to cater to the different modes of the business, right? So you might be in India today where you need 100 users. You might go to Singapore, you need only 5. It allows you to run multiple parallel businesses, to scale up, not just do stay in the same line of business that you are, but also very, very easily allow you to do upstream and downstream integrations.
Thanks, Rajesh, for bringing up the issue of integration and especially seamless. How about you, Rohit? What is your take on cloud ERP in the post-pandemic era, Rohit?
Let me focus more on the transformation and the startup growth, and then how perhaps cloud ERPs really focus on that. And it may be too self-serving for us at Creo, but my core belief is that finance plays a critical role in scaling startups efficiently. Right? And we are seeing more money flowing into startups, and it goes without saying that investors are looking for a higher alpha generation, which means the expectations from the CFOs or finance departments are also increasing to support this value creation. Right now, as we think about any modern CFO's toolkit, a cloud ERP to me really becomes an indispensable solution. Every company, literally every company, needs a source of truth, and the cloud ERP serves that purpose very well. Done right, we believe that it can truly transform both regular activities like book closing or reporting and auditing, but also aids tremendously with activities like data analysis, business intelligence, and so on.
Thanks, Rohit, for explaining to us those specific scenarios where cloud makes a contribution. Now, Vishal, a bit earlier, you talked about startups and this being the age of the startups. Now, last year has been a phenomenal year for startups. The startup ecosystem witnessed record-breaking growth in 2021. What are some of your thoughts on this, Vishal?
Yeah, look, the numbers are staggering, right? If you look at last year, I think the startup ecosystem raised close to $34 billion, right? And I think in the first half, of this year, I think the startups have actually managed to raise almost close to 17 billion. So, it's really been staggering. I was looking at some numbers for 22 as well, the Q1 of 22, and we've actually seen a 186% increase on the number of startups seeking investments, right? If we look at an overall value, it's about 64% growth year on year, in terms of raising funding. Now, there are three key things which is also driving this push, right? And if you look at the way the economy is evolving, one is obviously, there's a thriving digital payment ecosystem which has come up in the last couple of years, right? There's been a digital push, from the government as well. There's been a digital push from the businesses, in the private sector as well. That is the first aspect of it. The second aspect of it is, if you look at India, the smartphone user base in India has significantly grown, in the last 3 to 4 years. Obviously the networks are also improving. Earlier it was tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. Now you go to the remotest of corners, you actually have a good 4G connection, right? So again, a very, very large smartphone user base and digital first business models that a lot of these businesses are adopting, right? Now, because of this, you will see there has been a significant boom in the areas of fintech, e-commerce, grocery, right? There are different marketplaces that have come up, a lot of SaaS businesses, that have come up, and these are the top of sort of businesses that have actually, become unicorns at a very, very fast pace, right? So these three factors have actually been driving the digital transformation. They have been driving, startups, smaller businesses to look at SaaS solutions very, very seriously, because this is where the future lies. In fact, to the earlier point, I was hearing Rajesh and I was hearing Rohit. It's funny. I often, find this, not funny, but it's just an evolution of how things have changed. Back in 2018 and 2019, in fact, even, the early part of 2020, when we used to engage with, smaller companies, there used to always be an apprehension about bringing in new technology. And the demand was always, please come and sit next to us. We want you physically present next to us. Come the second half of 2020, 2021, we are actually pleading our prospects that we want to come and sit next to you, and they're saying, please don't come, we'll do this remotely. We do not want any physical presence. We can manage things remotely. It's a SaaS world out there. So that's how the things have evolved, right? And These are the things because of which there is also, the startup ecosystems in this space have seen a considerable amount of, boom. And this has led to a big digital transformation from an overall perspective.
Thanks, Vishal, for those great insights on how technology is changing business models and even mindsets about technology. Another big impact of technology is on processes and people. We're also seeing different kinds of roles emerging in this space. So my question to you now, Rohit, is you are leading a company that offers a financial intelligence platform. What is your perspective on the evolving role of a CFO in this day and age? Rohit?
Sure. Yeah. I think finance is a complex beast, first of all, with so many sort of moving parts, right? As the businesses get more global, more dynamic, it is going to get increasingly hard for even the best of the CFOs to allocate their times appropriately across the functions. And hence, sort of the best way for a company to succeed in this new age, according to us, for a CFO to succeed, is to create a culture of strategic finance across the company by arming the decision makers with the right intelligence at the right time. And that's sort of what we're trying to solve for with our finance intelligence platform, right? I feel fortunate enough to be able to start Creo during the present times. And we firmly believe that finance as a function is standing at an inflection point from being a back office function to what call a bloom office function, right? Today, it is no more just like record keeping or reporting that CFOs are responsible for. They have to be the purveyor of data-driven decision-making across the organization to get the best ROI on their investments. They need to be the strategic leader to shape the scaling of the company and be true partners with the functional leaders, right? And I mean, a corollary I could draw is it's similar to what perhaps happened with human capital function over the last decade, where previously it used to be much more, again, a back office function, but now it has truly become sort of more, front end, if you will, leading the organizations to the right kind of value creation, right? And I purposely used that word capital rather than human resources, what it used to be, and skill, quite prevalent terminology. But we think that that capital word is more appropriate in today's time, because now that sort of feeling of how employees are truly the capital to any resources, and that realization has sunk in deep, right? And we feel now it's the time for the same to happen with the CFO's office.
Thanks, Rohit. One of the many excellent points you just raised was there's an inflection point now in the way the CFO role is being perceived. How about you, Vishal? Looking across all your customers and clients, you've met many CFOs, CIOs, CTOs, and so on. What shifts are you seeing in the role of the CFO these days, Vishal?
So in fact, Rohit hit the nail on the head, right? It's no longer the traditional CFO role, right? It has significantly evolved. Today, if you look at CFOs, they are trying to identify opportunities, of expansion. They are looking at partnerships that will help them scale their business, right? They're evaluating technology. In fact, streamlining processes and evaluating technology. They're trying to find the right talent. They are always under pressure to access timely data and provide timely data, to the core executive management, committee. They're assessing risk, all the times. So the CFO is actually wearing multiple hats. It's just no longer the traditional role of the CFO. Now, because the overall role and the horizon of what the CFO does, in today's world has changed, right? They're always, it's all about data, right? It is all about data and data-driven decisions, right? And they're always under pressure to provide data in a timely manner so that the business can take relevant decisions, which will actually help propel growth for them, right? Not emotional decisions, not, instinct-led decisions. The decisions, and people understand this, everybody understands it. This is how the entire business scenarios have evolved, right? People want data. The decisions are now extremely data-driven, and which is where, the CFO is always under pressure, to provide all of this information in a timely manner, while wearing multiple other hats, such as seeking opportunities, partnerships, managing cash flows of the business, so on and so forth.
Thanks so much, Vishal, for identifying all these different kinds of opportunities. Let's shift now to the issue of challenges. I want to ask Rajesh, what are some of the challenges that startups face in their high-scale growth areas, and how do you think some of these challenges can be overcome? Rajesh?
So, as Rohit and Vishal said, the term high growth itself speaks about what good comes along with growth, and as well as the challenges that crop up with it. whenever a business is growing, and I've been in this line now on the consulting side for almost 15 years, I met more startups looking at process-driven systems in the last 3 years as compared to the first 12 years of my career. And one of the challenges, one of the reasons that they look for it is, whenever the business is growing, the focus that everybody has is to either increase sales, invest in their product platforms, increasing their footprints, right? And while the entire focus is on growing of the business, sometimes we've observed that the processes that are set in place, right, do get onto a backseat. And the reason for that is the objective at that part of the business is purely on growth. And once you're running at the speed of 120 miles an hour, to keep it sustained, and that's where you need to rely on sustainable processes. You need to rely on robust systems that help you manage those processes. So most of the customers who come to us when they speak to us, they're talking about, how do I get my data right? Like both Rohit and Vishal said, now that I have accumulated a whole lot of data, but I need to get intelligent insights out of it, right? And that's where the need for the system comes in. A lot of times we see that there are multiple systems that work across different functions, right? There is no consolidated view. So that's one of the challenges. And the other thing is that as with growth, you also need a system to be capable to scale up. Sometimes you start investing on a system which takes care of your initial need, but then you quickly ramp up. And we've seen a lot of startups now grow at a phenomenal speed with the entire information boom that has happened over the last 5 years. So ensuring that your processes are set to evolve along with you as a business is what we've seen as one of the key success mantras for companies that we've seen come a long way. So some of our partners that we work with, those who've invested time to set up the process and set up a process in a way that it grows and evolves along with their business and adapts to it, we've seen more successes in those areas.
Thanks, Rajesh. We've talked a lot now about scale and risk management. Let's talk a bit about productivity and efficiency. I want to ask Vishal now, how would you describe the role of ERPs in digital transformation? Can you talk to us about how cloud ERP is better than traditional methods in solving process inefficiencies at startups? Vishal?
In addition to what Rajesh was talking about in terms of, trying to solve the challenges, in adoption of technology. Now, when you look at a cloud solution, right, the cloud solution exactly does this, right? Scalability is the first aspect, right? A lot of the startup businesses, a lot of the smaller businesses, they are now looking at aggressively expanding, beyond the market, that they are locally serving it, right? They are looking at raising capital, Series B, Series C, Series D. And as they are raising these capitals, there is a lot of focus on automation of these processes, right? Now, this is what a true cloud solution like Oracle NetSuite really brings in for them. It's a highly scalable solution, right? So we actually, with built-in processes, right? So a lot of the processes that Rajesh was talking about, we actually, through NetSuite, encourage the startup organization to automate a lot of this. And in turn, what it does is it helps them turn around faster to the market, right? Not only that, it allows them to start, in an optimum manner, given the size of their business. And while they are expanding, it allows them to scale up in terms of bringing in, additional modules from a new process standpoint, from a new business standpoint, from a new geographic standpoint, in terms of adding new roles, within the business, within the organization, right? The other critical factor is a lot of these startup organizations, while they are still growing, they are small and medium-sized businesses today, their needs are enterprise class. So they actually need an enterprise class solution while they are still having resources of an SMB. They need an enterprise class solution which they can really deploy very, very quickly, right? These are these strengths and benefits that NetSuite as a solution really brings to these startup companies. And in fact, if you look at, if you just go to our website and if you look at some of the information, publicly available information, right? NetSuite is actually the #1 solution provider when it comes to startups. If you look at the statistics, or at least the startups, in which have got listed, in big exchanges like New York Stock Exchange in the last, 3 to 5 years, you'll see that over 50% of these businesses are NetSuite customers, right? So this is the value that really NetSuite brings in, to a lot of these startup businesses, Madan.
Thanks, Vishal, for emphasizing the need for enterprise quality, enterprise class solutions, even for startups in the growth phases. Let's turn now to the issue of revenue, issues such as revenue assurance, revenue maximization, and so on. So, Rohit, from the finance perspective, how far have business management softwares like ERPs been successful in maximizing revenue? Rohit?
I think, look, the tracking of all of the data that is, again, at the heart of what an ERP solution provides, right? And of course, that sort of brings in a certain kind of efficiency to the businesses. But in my view, what ERP really does, it is sort of going back to that being the single source of truth for business intelligence, right? Given literally every single transaction is available for analysis in these ERP systems, one could get a full 360-degree view of the operations of the company and can act in revenue or sort of overall value maximizing efforts, right? Think about sort of understanding your customer better, your vendor, your employees better through the lens of finance, right? And that kind of truly unlocks the value that you can create. I would say further, as this sort of vastly detailed information is available on past performance, it becomes the foundation for a very robust and sort of thoughtful business planning, which certainly results in maximization of value overall. So from my perspective, beyond the tactical aspects of day-to-day working around process efficiencies and bringing in front of the decision makers the right kind of data, it is also being the foundation of planning and really unlocking the true business intelligence for the companies.
Thanks, Rohit, for bringing up the very important issue of business intelligence and connecting that to value. So, Vishal, can you talk to us about NetSuite's role in enabling operational value creation and fueling digital transformation for high growth startups? Vishal?
Yes, Madan. Look, I think our biggest value is our cloud story, right? Now, why are we so popular with the startup ecosystem? Why are we so popular with the growing companies, right? It is, the quick, faster turnaround times that we really bring in, right? When these businesses are, we actually work a lot with the, investors as well, right? Because what we do is we understand what are the expectations that these investors have from these businesses, right? And when we start working with these startup companies, we actually educate them on what are the market expectations, what is it that they need to be ready with. It is not just that we are giving them an ERP solution, mapping them with their process and deploying it. No, it's not about that. It is more of a holistic approach where we educate them through pre-built templates within the system in terms of what is the market expectations, right? Tomorrow, if they want to really scale up to other geographies, they are ready, with in terms of meeting the local statutory requirements, right? They are ready, when it comes to meeting compliance requirements. It is easy for the CFO, from a consolidation perspective, right? So there are pre-built templates that are readily available to them. The biggest value with that we really bring, to our customers, especially in this space, is the processes that NetSuite as a solution is ready with, and this is again in line with what the investors expect and what the markets expect out of them. How will our solution, the real value comes when we talk to a lot of these customers and say that, look, I had this much percentage of growth, I had triple-digit growth, and that's what we really thrive on. So this is one of the biggest value offerings that we as a solution from a NetSuite standpoint bring to the market, and that's why we are also a favorite when it comes to the growing companies, the companies who are actually in a pre-IPO stage and looking at going IPOs in perhaps the next few quarters time.
Thanks, Vishal.
I'll interject and have a commercial for NetSuite as well, because in my prior life as an investment banker, when we used to look at companies to really bank on and see if they are truly IPO material, we used to go and ask them, what ERP solutions do you use? And if they would say that we have NetSuite, then as a banker, we would have some satisfaction that they have their accounting in check, right? So I think that's a great validation of the solution that NetSuite has created. And truly, I think the startups in today's day and age are getting way more complex than the size that they're operating at. And truly having such kind of a world-class solution can help them navigate these sort of challenging waters that are ahead of them.
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you, Rohit, for that. And I think it's a great testimony, right? And this is what we keep hearing from our customers as well. At least we as NetSuite, we believe, in giving that solution, which is really flexible, right? It does not create complications of traditional system. It is open for integrations, right? With the known systems, as well as with the newer systems that are there in the marketplace, right? And these are all, within the resources that SMBs expect from us. So thank you again, Rohit, for that.
Thanks, Rohit, for that extra validation of the importance of cloud ERP solutions, and in this case, NetSuite as well. For the last round of questions, I want to focus a bit more on impact and advice. Rajesh, what is your advice to companies who are just starting their ERP implementation journey? And can you shed some light on maybe some of the common pitfalls in such an enterprise-wide initiative, and how can they be overcome? Rajesh?
That's a great question, Manan. Usually, when we finish all our pre-sale story with the client and the client is sold on the project, before signing on the dotted line, this is the last question that they need clarity on. What are the things that could possibly go wrong? What are the pitfalls of changing the process? Right? Because whenever you are getting an ERP on board, it's not just for, as Rohit and Vishal mentioned, not just for the finance department, but the entire organization gets tied to it, right? So everybody is interlinked, right? From whether it is your sales team, your procurement team, your inventory team, or your finance team, and also your service teams, right? So one of the things that we tell our clients to peruse on and to think about is, what is the transformation that you want to bring about with this project? There could be a multiple set of reasons. It could be, as Vishal mentioned, when you were asking, as in terms of impacting revenue growth. It could be finding out and identifying revenue leakage. It could be in terms of bringing in much more compliance in your business processes from an IPA perspective, or it could be just bringing customer delight in terms of customer service, because your time to resolution, your time to response is way more faster as your processes get more streamlined. Right? So it is very, very critical for you to understand and finalize those 2-3 key business metrics that you want to impact when you go ahead with the transformation project. Right? The transformation project could be an ERP, it could be an analytics system. Right? But you need to identify what are the key things I'm going to change, and more importantly, who is it that is going to get impacted about it? Are we changing something that is broken, or are we changing something just for the sake of changing? That becomes a very, very critical thought process to do before you get into an initiative like that, right? And we've seen companies with a very clear agenda in terms of the objectives that they have met, that gets transferred into quantifiable goals. Right? A lot of times we've done projects over the last decade where at times the company comes back and says, "Hey, my goals are no longer quantifiable." Right? That was because we did not have a clear solution to start with. Right? So if you have a clear objective to start with, it's very easy to have a quantifiable goal against it. And downstream, when the rubber meets the road and you start using the system, you can see those numbers and track those numbers. It could be in terms of reducing your AR rates. It could be in reducing the number of your entire approval cycle. So this is very, very critical. The second thing, obviously, is that how do you manage your change management through an organization? Is it siloed as one department is driving it, or is it top down where the organization sets them? I've done implementations which was as low as 2 users for an organization to as high as 2,500 users. And the key success rate we found is that when the organization is aligned towards a common goal, where there is a top-down approach, wherein at each level there is an intervention, there is an acceptance to the fact that yes, we are on the path of transformation, and that's where we've seen most successes come.
Thanks, Rajesh, for bringing up the very important issue of impact, and the issue of impact also brings up the topic of metrics. So Rohit, what are the key metrics that the company will be able to monitor with an ERP so as to optimize its functioning? Rohit?
As the saying goes, Madan, if you don't track it, you can't improve it. And I think that's precisely what the cloud ERP systems enable companies to do. And there are few key metrics that all the businesses care about, like revenue, gross margins, EBITDA, net profit, DSOs, DPOs, cash balances, and so on, right? Which of course are available in modern ERP solutions. And then there are some key performance indicators or KPIs that are quite specific to an industry. So for example, for a SaaS company, It could be, ARR, annual recurring revenue, or MRR, monthly recurring revenue, churn metrics, net retention ratios, CAC, LTVs, etc. For a B2B internet companies, it could be, say, a GMV or contribution margins or MAUs or CACs again, which is also something that modern ERP systems are either able to provide out of box or at least enables the companies to calculate through the robust data set that they have available. So I think all in all, given the vast nature of the data that these ERPs are capturing, they should be able to enable the companies to really tailor these metrics based on their needs and showcase it to a broad variety of individuals who should be taking either some inference out of them or taking direct decisions based on that information.
Thanks, Rohit, for bringing up the important issue of how all these metrics must ultimately tie to good decisions. Now, the issue of partnership came up a number of times in our discussion today. So let me ask Rajesh, how important is it to have a good implementation partner for successful cloud ERP implementation? Rajesh?
Yeah. So, Madan, this is one of the most defining questions in any consultant's business life cycle, right? Why does a customer want to work with you? And when I get asked this question, so my answer to the question to the customers and partners I work is very simple. So that whenever you are engaging in a transformation project, you're not looking at a product to solve their problems. You're looking for a solution to a business problem that you have. There are products in the market, and every product has a value proposition. But at the end of the day, you would like to go ahead and implement that product with a partner who understands your problem, who has a solution, and who knows how to map the product to your solution. You can find whenever, and a lot of times customers ask, why is it so important? Every partner has consultants, it's the same product. Why should we choose you over the other? So the answer to that is very straightforward in my mind, is that anybody and everybody can configure a product, but can anybody configure the solution for the problem that you have? And that becomes the differentiator when you choose a partner, right? Somebody who understands your industry, right? Like Rohit spoke about, needs vary from industry to industry. If I am a SaaS-based product, my requirements are different. If I'm a wholesale trading company, my requirements are different. Now, if you look at the product is a platform, right? So NetSuite as a product is a platform where you can pick and choose what modules you want, right? But the way it gets configured for different industries is completely different from another. So while NetSuite brings across with it, the best practices, but there is always a flavor of the company who's implementing it. And that getting that flavor onto the platform is what a good consulting partner does for you. Because he understands your business need. They come in with an expertise of having done it for X number of years. They share with you what other people have done in similar scenarios. Sometimes, you might realize that there could be processes which you are the best at, and there are processes which others are doing which you can easily adopt. And that's the value addition that a good partner brings in. Right? At the end of the day, it's about the trust that you have the person who's implementing the solution, that hey, this guy is going to solve my problem for me, and he's going to be there for me whenever I am in need, even going forward, because he's scaling up and he's evolving as the product evolves.
Thanks, Rajesh, for walking us through the different kinds of criteria which a startup must assess when they choose a partner, and for bringing up the very important issue of trust. Well, as we come towards the end of our discussion, I just want to ask Vishal if you have any concluding statements, any parting words of wisdom for our audience. Vishal?
Thanks, Madan. I think, look, given where we are, we are almost in the post-pandemic world now, right? We have seen drastic shift in the way businesses have started, operating in the last couple of years, right? People now realize the importance of a cloud solution, right? I remember not in the first, but in the second and the third quarter of 2020, we were swamped, all the prospects that we were talking to in 19 and 18, who had for some reason held back on their decisions, they actually just came running to us, right? And there is a lot of excitement in the startup ecosystem now, right? There are a lot of investors who are really looking at good value businesses, right, to make investments. And when they look at these value businesses, they actually look at solutions that will, really walk in the growth story of these value businesses. And that's where we really, come in and add a lot of value to that. The other critical factor, while we are winding up this discussion, we were talking about changing roles of the CFO. Rohit was talking about, how they add value in terms of providing the right set of data. Whenever, especially the startup ecosystems, they are going through a digital transformation, we understand very well that they have lean operations at that point of time, right? As they are trying to raise funding, they have very, very lean operations. If you look at the CFO, if you look at the supporting team, the first thought always comes is, oh my God, I'll have to go through an entire implementation process. It will really, take a lot of my time, and I have to focus on the business operations. And this is exactly where we tell them that when you have a solution with pre-built templates, which actually helps you automate a lot of things, we actually show our customers, this is how you need to do it, right? And this is where an experienced partner like Yantra, right, who goes in and says that, look, we understand your vertical well, we understand your processes well, we will implement the best practices, and while you focus on your business, we try to take care of the technology aspects of things as much as possible. Yes, they will have to involve, their involvement will be needed at the time of implementation, but things are very, very different today, from the way they were being done with the traditional ERP systems, right? So it's an exciting phase for everybody. There's a lot of action in the market. There's a lot of traction in the startup ecosystem, and we are there with ready-made solutions to simplify life for a lot of these customers. That's just what I want to end with for them.
Thanks, Vishal, for sharing the excitement that there is in this space. I'm sure many of the startups would agree with you. This is the best time to be a startup in India in this space, in whatever sector they are in. Once again, Vishal, Rajesh, Rohit, thanks so much for this outstanding discussion. If I may sum up some of the key takeaways for our audience, it would be the 3 S's: safety, speed, and scale. A cloud ERP gives you that sense of safety for your data, for your processes, and so on. It gives you speed and agility to bounce back from a situation, adjust to changes in the market, and so on. And last but not least, scale. For scale stage pre-IPO startups, this is the kind of foundation you need to have to go on and serve new markets, new countries, and so on. Once again, Vishal, Rajesh, Rohit, thank you so much. We wish you all the best in your journey, and thanks to our audience for joining us today. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Madan Mohan Rao from YourStory.